We know that Operation Sindoor is a household name today, and its evolution has been a very welcome sort of a development in India's overall strategic outlook. When I was a young officer at the line of control, or subsequently as a commanding officer, Pakistanis jokingly used to tell us that your orders will come from New Delhi and we will be the first to fire the shot and the last one to culminate it. But we've seen Uri happen, then Balakot happened, and now we have Operation Sindoor. And this is the first multi-domain operation launched by 3 services since 1971. And it is also a harbinger of a new deterrence and warfighting doctrine, wherein we see a classic example, a shining example of military-civil fusion, adopting a whole-of-nation approach. And there are very clear red lines which our top political leadership has spelled out. That is that we have to, target the entire ecosystem, which includes Pakistan military establishment. Both kinetic and non-kinetic means will be used, like you see the holding in abeyance this Indus Water Treaty. Talks, terror, water and trade cannot go together. And we've also called Pakistani bluff. And when Operation Sindoor happened, it operated in a very complex cycles. It was not a classic, earlier we used to have the mobilization day, the D-Day, stages of war, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. This is very compressed cycles. There were multiple ladders of escalations actually in place at the same time. Strategic communication, narrative building became very, very important. And what goes to the credit of Indian Armed Forces and our leadership, that there was a very clear-cut exit strategy. Right from the very beginning, that once a politico-military objectives are achieved and we brought the other side to its knees, we are not interested in prolonging this conflict. And it has also now thrown new ideas for Atmanirbharta, not only in technology and self-reliance, but also in the doctrinal thought. And there is a new push for transformation of Indian armed forces to create a future-ready joint force which can operate in the gray zones as good as it can operate across the spectrum of conflicts and up the escalation ladder. And cognitive domain, where mind is a weapon and we have multiple means of communication. These are, also the weapons and the target that has come into being. So without further ado, since you've been listening to the 3 distinguished speakers here through media and at different fora, so I'll request each one of them for about 6 to 7 minutes. Just give out your perspective or your insights into Operation Sindoor that, the common people or veterans would like to know. So I would begin with General Ghai. Over to you. Tell us about the land operations, please.
Thank you, sir. So in a lighter vein, whenever I meet Air Marshal Bharti and Vice Admiral Pramod, I get this Jai Viru feeling. And I think that's a sentiment that's going to last a lifetime. It was indeed a big privilege to work with the both of them. And it's always wonderful to, either run into them or have an official kind of an engagement like we're doing today. I know, sir, you said 40 minutes, so time is less. Let's see if we can try and make it more interactive. So I'll not take much time. I just want to dwell on 1 or 2 issues. Much has been said and written about the operation, how it kind of evolved, how it unfolded, and how it was very rapidly concluded also. So, as far as I'm concerned, the operation, 3 important things that I want to highlight today. First was that it signified to me an absorption of risk. I think if you go over the last 10 years, we've had terror incidents. And I think this time we just took the threshold slightly further, and we did what required to be done. I think there was a national fervor in that regard. A redefinition of the threshold. I think newer benchmarks were set. I think even this has been often spoken of. And I think yet we managed to attain a certain amount of escalation and control. And there was an imposition of cost without actually resorting to all-out war. I think the intensity, kept. There were ebbs and flows through the operation, but we never really, came close to an all-out war or conflict. There are two aspects. I'll not take much time. There are two aspects that I want to speak of today. One is the informational domain. And, a lot of people kind of associate the three of us with that. As reluctant as the three of us would have been, you possibly cannot imagine that all three, I think, were very reluctant protagonists at that time. So all I can say is all is well that ends well. And it's very ironical when, the Honorable Raksha Rajya Mantri said today that of the 50,000 paintings that were made by those children, 90% of them had Colonel Sophia Qureshi and Wing Commander Vyomika Singh that featured in them. That's the power of the informational domain and IW. So it's what I want to highlight today is the fact that our narratives were very precise, and they legitimized our operations. I think we were always very upfront about what we'd done. I think we came out and said, and I think that that increased our credibility and the legitimacy of our actions. We had a counter information effort going on at all times. And I think what we did manage to achieve was that before any false narrative could actually gain momentum or influence people within the country, I think we were able to control it. And in that regard, there was a fair amount of help also from the government. If you recollect, our media releases were very controlled. And what it did was that it highlighted the calibrated nature of our operations, which signified as to the fact that while at all times we were cognizant of the fact that we had to control the escalation, so we never provoked it, and yet it signaled strength in a certain way. So this, as much as the informational domain is concerned, we could discuss it later on. As far as the military action is concerned, I think it's been repeatedly said, it's also been argued and debated, but I want to say it again today, that our actions were targeted, controlled, and non-escalating. A lot of people have walked up to me and said that this is something that possibly did not reap the kind of benefits that we've tried to portray. But be that as it may, I think that was the approach. I want to highlight that again today. As far as the military domain is concerned, our actions were integrated, and like General BK Sharma said, it was a multi-domain operation. So therefore, there were enough that we did to maintain sustained pressure on the Pakistan army. It's also possibly lost. Sometimes we lose count of the fact that there was a lot of deployment on land by the army, but yet it was short of a complete mobilization. But we did enough to activate and initiate measures that created a certain amount of pressure on the Pakistan army. And of course, the precision strikes themselves that were carried out by the army, the air force, with enough support from the Indian Navy. We destroyed terrorists' infrastructure, and yet made sure that there was no escalation, there was no collateral damage, and it significantly underscored our punitive reach. So, if I was to just kind of summarize this for you, the operation was also symbolic in many ways. It It represented our confidence in escalation control, and demonstrated our capacity to act without fear of consequence. I said that right at the outset, as far as absorption of risk is concerned. And while we did this, we were at all times. I've also heard this being said, and I think I said this once somewhere earlier, that it's naive to believe that somebody as professional as the Indian Armed Forces would go into an operation like this without actually preparing for all kinds of contingencies. And we were prepared at all times for this to even lead up to an all-out war or conflict. It also communicated, I think, largely to everybody in the world that we will define and not adhere to externally imposed thresholds. And of course, it did set a benchmark in how instruments of the often stated dime could actually converge to gain overall strategic objectives. So having said this, I'll rest my case here. We could have a discussion on this. We are short of time today, and I'll now request General BK Sharma to take this further.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now you see, three things stood out very clearly. One is that, a precision strikes at Bhavalpur and Muridki, Air Force played a major role. Then our integrated, air defense command and control system was able to thwart, I think, a vast majority of their whatever drones and missiles they had thrown at us. And then 9 precision targets which were of strategic value. This is a major takeaway as far as aero domain warfare is concerned. So would you like to please educate us on, as far as aero domain operations were concerned, what were those key features, which went around and what we can learn from them?
Thank you, sir. And I'll begin by thanking USI for inviting me over here and giving me the opportunity to reach out to a varied audience. Okay, I can see some senior veterans here, and then going down right up to some college students back. So it's a good opportunity to reach out to such a vast audience. And also thanks USI for giving me this opportunity to share the stage with 2 of my esteemed colleagues with whom I had a wonderful time. In those days, it was a privilege to be working with them in synergy, and it really is a pleasure to share the stage with them. Now, what I intended to do here in about 7-8 minutes was cover more of Atmanirbharta. Okay, that is what was the understanding. But what I take from here is that we need to connect a little more with our younger generation here and cover Op Sindoor per se. Of course, there is a limit to what we can say and what we can cover. So let me make an effort out there to reach out to all the sections. So firstly, Op Sindoor was a classic example how joint planning and war fighting can be done. And the 3 of us used to meet every day, okay, not once, maybe twice at least, and at times more than that. And that started in right earnest very early. I can't define the timeline that we started meeting. So it was a classic example of how, when directions are clear and we put our minds together, how and what we can achieve. So one takeaway from Op Sindoor that I would like this audience to take is jointness. Okay. Second is higher directions. The higher directions to us were very clear, and they were conveyed to us at various forums, maybe through the CDS or through our chiefs. We had the interaction, all 3 of us. We used to meet all the 3 chiefs And the directions from there were very clear as to what we need to do. So if the directions are clear, the job of the armed forces becomes that much easier. My friend Rajiv alluded to the media narrative. Of course, after that, there are a lot of stories being woven that our narrative, okay, maybe we were lagging behind or we were not forthright in setting some records straight. But that was with a purpose. Initially, when we put in some spokespersons from our side, did not take any questions, that was with a definite purpose. And when it was time, the higher leadership decided that we needed to set the narrative correctly and take a few questions, which we did. So everything has its time and place. So let us not get into that domain that we have lost the narrative. And it was a conscious effort going into the operations. The three of us had decided that any narrative that has to be put out in public domain, it will be a common narrative. It will be not an individual service narrative. It will be a common narrative. And that is how it panned out. And that is what stood us in good stead. Now, primacy of air domain, when I say air domain, it is not Air Force. Okay? It is air domain. Everybody today works in air domain. The land forces work in air domain. The Indian Navy works in air domain. So the primacy of that air domain to be able to achieve your objectives and yet not be escalatory, that was brought out to the fore very, very clearly. And when we were planning for this, we weighed in various options as to what all are the options available to us with the aim that was given to us. That was to strike at the terror hubs and draw a new normal. So various options were deliberated and to have the requisite effect in the time frame that we were wanting. The air domain was chosen as the most effective, which it turned out to be. And in that, when I say air domain, it is not only Air Force, the naval assets were involved, the assets with the Indian Army were involved. So it was a joint and an integrated effort. When we say precision strikes, the effect that it had on the ground, that also brings me to the subject of salience of planning and equipping correctly. So whatever our veterans here sitting today had planned and envisaged, we reap the fruits during these operations. So because these equipments do not come in a day. So whatever we are planning today will come in our hands maybe 5 years, 7 years, 8 years hence. So whatever they have planned, so that came in handy during these operations. So foresight, planning and equipping, that it really is an area which I would like to leave our younger leadership with, that we need to continuously keep evolving. Think ahead as to what will you need 5 years hence, 7 years hence. Initiate the process now so that when it is time, you are correctly equipped and rightly equipped. Now that brings me to the question of Atmanirbharta. Yes, a lot of indigenous equipment did kick in and it performed admirably well. Talk of ISCCS, Akash Tir integration, IMSAS. We talk of our airborne early warning and control system. Talk of Akash. I talk of BrahMos. Yes, they did fabulously well. But when we talk of Atmanirbharta, okay, indigenization and Atmanirbharta, you have to make a difference. Yes, indigenization is the way forward. But Atmanirbharta is total self-reliance, 100% on indigenization. Because even if you achieve 99% indigenization, but we are not having that critical chip or that critical fuel pump or that critical component, that 99% of indigenization is of no use, because you will not be able to use that system, use that weapon when it is required to be used. So we need to work towards 100% indigenization, Atmanirbharta. It will not happen in one go. It will not happen today. But we need to work towards that. We need to firstly realize that, yes, that is where we need to reach, and then we need to work towards that. So various schemes are on, and I'm glad to share this, that not only government agencies, DRDO, not only the DPSUs, but also a lot of private entities are coming up towards to fill this gap. But we really need to take our R&D to a next level, which is not happening, so which is a matter of concern. The other thing that I want to highlight here during these operations is the resolve of our people. Remember, there will be a limited number of people in uniform who would actually be doing the kinetic action or non-kinetic action. But what came to the fore during these operations is the resolve of our people. You see, after 1971, it is the first time when people have seen blackout. It is the first time when people have seen any weapons coming in, missiles coming in, or even our own missiles or anti-aircraft guns being fired. You speak to the people in Jammu, Pathankot, Srinagar, Firozpur. I mean, we were getting input in real time, and it was so heartening to hear that there is no panic. There are no jams on the road. People are not trying to get to the rear areas. Everybody stood their ground. They dug their heels in, and as if they were ready to face the enemy themselves. So when you have a population which is so resilient, I mean, let the enemy come with any amount of force, any weapon, you cannot defeat the resilience of 1.4 billion people. And for personally for me, that was a big takeaway during Operation Sindoor, when I realized that our civil population, our population which is not in uniform, they are equally to the task, and they are not flinching. They are standing their ground. So that is what is our collective strength. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is not a rhetoric. This realization dawned onto me when I was sitting in that ops room. So that is a compliment. And remember, as long as we show that resilience, as long as we stand our ground, nothing can defeat the collective will of 1.4 billion of us. So please remember that. Lastly, a lot of people do ask me, why did we stop when we were at the top of the things, when we had them on the mat? Yes, that the fact that we had them where we wanted them is very correct. But why did we stop? Now, the basics of any conflict or war fighting, first and foremost, is selection and maintenance of aim. What did we start with? Our aim was terror and terror infrastructure. We had selected that target. Once we achieved that, our aim is achieved. So now it is time to terminate the conflict. If we wanted something else, then we would have gone into the conflict with that aim and thereafter continue to prosecute it. So during conflict, we cannot be vacillating and changing the goalpost, change the aim. So that is one of the basic tenets of war fighting, which we stuck to, and I'm glad we stuck to that. Achieve your objectives, terminate, and thereafter move on. So with that, I will, I think, end here. And if time is there, then we'll take it on further in the Q&A session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for these insights. And as far as Indian Navy is concerned, we know that they shared a lot of their assets with the other two services. And also there was a very profound psychological impact when you had your aircraft carrier mobilized, and particularly a dagger poised at Karachi. So its psychological impact on the leadership of Pakistan military establishment, I think we would request Admiral Pramod to just share his insights on this.
Thank you very much, General Sharma, first of all, for inviting me on this India Military Heritage Festival. We all have grown up reading the USI journals, and this institution has definitely played a key role in professional growth, especially in terms of knowing about the military history and the military leadership. I also see that today is a Children's Day and large number of children are available here, and they probably will gain a lot from these insights or interactions. And this also I see a rich conglomeration of distinguished veterans. Who have been these warriors, military scholars. You see the diplomats here, government agencies, scientists, defense industry partners, and also the media here. Academicians also here there. So I'm happy to be here. I also want to share why we connect with each other as well is that we have the mutual respect and trust among each other. We accept each other in a way we are, and there's a big connect between us, and the secret of our relationship is also the common love for sports. I also would like to share that what General Ghai and Air Marshal Bharti just mentioned, we had a clear military directions, well-defined military objectives, well-delineated tasks among each services and central agencies. There was extreme synergy in operation, whether it's at the politico-military level, whether it's at the CDS service chief level, naval headquarters, and the command to the subordinates level. This was a clear distinction there, wherein we had clarity on the service alertness levels and the escalation control matrix which we had to follow. The most distinct in Op Sindoor was the offensive mindset which we all had, which percolated down to our planning and execution, and this translated even to the subordinate level. We all were very, very clear and had practiced and fully au fait with multi-domain integrated operations, and that is what we practiced in Operational Sindoor. If I have to talk about Indian Navy, as you all are aware, over a period of maybe in last 4 to 5 decades, we have emerged as a multidimensional force. Multidimensional, I mean, including subsurface, whether it's land, air, space, cyber, all domains. We have emerged as a force capable of handling tackling both traditional and non-traditional threats in a swift manner that could be in hours' time. The unique distinction of the naval force is, for some of you who are not familiar with the Indian naval platforms, the versatility that you can take on a non-traditional and a traditional threat in a graduated response by same platform. The second part is the weapon density, which the firepower which a naval force carries. I have given this example in many places, like in Midnight Hammer. If the B-2 bombers have carried out attack on the nuclear facilities, a USS Ohio carried out 30 Tomahawk missiles launch. That platform itself carries 154 missiles, 154 Tomahawk missiles, which weight of almost 650 kg. That's the kind of firepower a naval force has. The sustenance reach, that means you can continue in that North Arabian Sea, operate in North Arabian Sea without any much support for 30 to 45 days. If this was the character of the Indian Navy, you can make out that if we have to, this is not only the deployment which matters. More than the deployment is the message which carry it. That means you are able to deter your forces. The credible deterrence capability is there in you, and that also has a strategic compellence part in this, so that you are telling him that if you take any action, you will face consequences. So as DG had mentioned, Director General USI has mentioned, it is not only the psychological effect, it is economic effect also, it is a strategic economic effect, as well as a deep impact on the military. So that is the kind of, even your presence in that without firing a bullet, that's the kind of effect a naval force can render. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think it's been very fascinating listening to these people. Many things they can state here. There are many things they cannot state here. And we do not have time for interaction now. So all I want to say that, in the past, whenever we had any major war and operation, there was the degree of, sense of urgency, and things with the passage of time, the complacency returned, and it was business as usual. Till our adversaries were able to, innovate and achieve a competitive edge in the military balance. This time I see a very new kind of a sentiment in the nation as a whole, that we are not going to let our guards down. While our enemies they are sharpening their weapons, the changes that are taking place in China, particularly in the niche and disruptive technology domain. We know what Pakistan is. They've also gone for some reforms in their higher defense organization very recently. Munir has now the nuclear button in his hand. He's a unified kind of authority there. We also know that the kind of help which Chinese rendered to Pakistan Army this time, particularly in terms of ISR and that beyond visual range missile. And now these 8 frigates and certain AIP-enabled submarines which are coming to the Navy, Pakistan Navy, and also maybe the state-of-the-art, 5th generation aircraft to Pakistan Air Force. We cannot gloss over these developments. So I think it is in everybody's interest that this Atmanirbharta is actually given the impetus that it deserves, and concurrently the 3 armed forces also, we do not sort of sit on our haunches and think about past wars, but we are able to transform ourselves in a joint services environment for future tech-predominant warfare. With these words, I just want to thank my panelists. Despite their very busy schedule, they made it convenient to come here and share their very sharp insights with us. Thank you very much for your patience.